The spirit of the triple thrash treat, the ball now presents an in-depth look at one of Britain's top metal bands, Carcass. It was back in 1985 that Liverpool's Carcass first began churning out their unique brand of heavy metal. Formed by guitarist Bill Steer and drummer Ken Owen, the band matured into a more serious unit in '87 when Steer and Owen were joined by Jeff Walker on bass and vocals. In 1988, Carcass released their debut album, Reek of Putrefaction, on Nottingham's Earache label. '89 saw the UK release of the band's second helping of hardcore, Symphonies of Sickness, which boasted improved production values and more structured and melodic material. It was at this point that second guitarist Mike Amott was added to consolidate the new material in the live environment. Late last year, Carcass released their third album, Necroticism, Descanting the Insalubrious. I love saying that. And with it came their first ever video for the track, Incarnated Solvent Abuse. Despite the gory and somewhat explicit lyrics, Carcass are keen to be accepted as just a good, traditional heavy metal band.
We recorded Reek of Putrefaction in '87, which is probably the most horriblest, brutalist, sickest record for that genre. And in a way, that was the end of death metal as far as I'm concerned. I mean, death metal, which is a really hard to define thing, you know, like I was saying earlier, you know, Metallica were called death metal when they started. I mean, to me, death metal is a period of time from about, you know, '84 through to about '87, you know, bands like Hellhammer or Celtic Frost. That's the same band, I should say. And early Slayer, Venom, early Death, along with all the underground death metal bands. I mean, all the classic recordings date from that period, and those bands have either progressed now to really good thrash bands, or, you know, they've just moved on into, you know, good rock band or whatever. And any band that's around now calling themselves death metal are basically just bandwagon jumpers. And you know, I'm always a bit suspect of anyone who labels the music such a generic sort of limiting, you know, category, because, you know, you just can't really define what death metal is anyway. But to me personally, and probably the rest of my band, we feel it's a, you know, probably, you know, mid-'80s. That's a period of time. It's rather like a band forming today saying that they're punk rock. That's something that happened 14 years ago, as far as we're concerned. We're more concerned with being a rock band than just some fashionable music genre, you know, just for the sake of making money or whatever. We're in it for the music, not the pose or Symphonies of Sickness. I think really we were really disappointed with Reek of Putrefaction because the production was lacking ever so slightly, and the playing. We recorded that 18 months later after Reek of Putrefaction, and basically what we did with that record was redefine or refine and redefine what Carcass was about. And I think with that album we formed our own niche. We created our own style, which I mean, it's just a far superior progression from the production to our abilities as musicians to the songs. And I think, in a way, that was sort of our first album, in a way, because for a period of time we disowned Reek of Putrefaction because it was just, you know, we just thought it was just too nasty, basically. And I think Symphonies underlines what we were trying to do with Reek of Putrefaction. And with a new album now, Necroticism, Descanting the Insalubrious, again, it's turning over a new leaf again, because, you know, we've got all the extreme stuff out of our system now. We've created our own little niche, dug our own grave, if you pardon the pun, and we're just progressing as a rock band. I don't mean that's a nasty word, progressing. You know, I think it's a really healthy thing. If you take each album, they're completely, not completely different. You can tell it's Carcass, but you can tell that we're progressing as musicians and as a rock band or whatever. And we're not really too concerned anymore about, you know, saying that we're totally extreme and we're brutal. The truth of the matter is, you know, we're far heavier, more all-round, you know, we're, how can I explain? We're, you know, we're pretty fast, we're pretty slow, pretty mid-paced in sections. We're not technically just a thrash band or a death metal band or wherever people have been labelling us. We're just a, you know, heavy metal band for the 90s, basically. we were heavily into death metal originally, and the lyrics were just so generic and misogynist and homophobic, and everything about it just stank of, you know, cliches to do with heavy metal, you know, about killing women or raping women or whatever. And basically we wanted to put a more sort of realistic, which is bound to make it more brutal or more horrible tinge to everything, or look at it from a more sort of humanistic point of view. I mean, rather than singing about these things that just don't exist, like zombies or the occult or Satan, you know, these things that just are not tangible, just not there. We base our lyrics more on reality, and I think our lyrics go hand in hand with the music originally, because our music was horrible, our lyrics were horrible, and our imagery was horrible, the sleeves. Now, like I said earlier, we've created our own style, and what we're trying to do now, we're trying to make it's adult-orientated rock music, really. We're not writing, you know, lyrics for 14-year-old kids or whatever, you know. We're not singing about going to see the latest horror film and, you know, just singing about what's going on in that film. We're treating it in a more sort of articulate and literary sense, in the way, like, you know, Edgar Allan Poe might have wrote a macabre novel or whatever. You know, we're looking at it more from a sort of from a point of view of it being artwork, as opposed to just two-dimensional, you know, lyrics and music. I think we do feel responsible to a certain extent, because we're not as extreme as we were when we were 18, 17. But it's just part and parcel of growing up. We've never done anything to shock people. We've never gone out of our way to be extreme just for the sake of it. So I think as we grow up and mature, we're just... I mean, it's just going to get a bit far more removed from our roots, really. Bill,
I mean, if it is offensive, I mean, it's offensive towards everyone, rather than being selective and just picking, you know, one particular group, you know, be it women, a certain race or whatever. I mean, you know, it's about death, which is something that happens to everyone. So really, as far as being offensive goes, I mean, I think, you know, you're either offended or you're not.
It's not an intentional thing that we avoided Morrisound because, you know, it's part of this so-called death metal thing. The reason why we didn't go to Morrisound or use that producer is we just don't like the work he does. And for, like I've been saying, we don't really feel ourselves as a death metal band because it's such a generic, limiting little thing to be called. We're more, you know, we're just a rock band, and we'll do things that we think we need to do to get the sound we need to create. So, you know, we went, you know, the producer we had, we got because he's a good friend, and two, he's actually appreciates what Carcass is doing or what he's trying to do, and he brings out the best in us. So we're not formulated, we're not cynical, we don't sit on the side and see like bands getting big and think that we have to go a certain direction to get big, because we're not in it to get big, we're in it because we enjoy playing the music, and because, you know, we feel we've got something to contribute. And maybe if, you know, 5 years from now, this band, you know, maybe we're never going to break bigger. We don't particularly care from one point of view. People looking back and will probably say, you know, there's a classic band and you got overlooked. That's probably be the case. But we know deep in our hearts that we're doing something original, that we're progressive. We're probably, you know, one of the few progressive bands in left field of wherever this is called, you know. It's really hard when we don't want to categorise our music. Yeah. But we, like I said earlier, we really see ourselves as a heavy metal band for the 90s, not some fashionable kiddies thing like death metal.
And remember to watch out for Carcass on the forthcoming Gods of Grind tour, which is due to terrorise Europe in March.